All right. Got to always start out with a little rock and music, right? Thank you guys for joining. Here I am. Why is my video not showing, Niale? It's showing yours. Might pin me, Niale, and we can start off. So we're going to go to our MREA book club. So we're doing this Keller Inc. book club. I do a book club once a month. We've been going through the models of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Today's all about the organizational model. So we're going to jump into this, and we've got an hour, and I don't want to waste time yapping. Let's dive into our content today. So I always like to start with kind of the perspective around what is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? So this book is really the compilation of research from Gary Keller, where he took the research of all the people succeeding at a high level, and through that research, if I just looked at all those agents in the beginning, it would look like chaos. And then at some point in time, that research comes down to a place where we have what's called best practices and how to succeed at a high level from a place of best practices. And really, that's what the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book is. It is the best practices of how to succeed at a high level. And we've gone through the economic model, which was really the math formula of what it takes to succeed at your level, where you have an income goal, math formula down to here's what we need to do at an activity level in order for that income level to go. And then we went through last month the lead generation model, which is literally build a lead generation machine that you believe this machine will create this outcome. And how do we do that? And what are the best practices around that? And then this month, we're going over the organizational model. And it's really how to build an organization so that I can accomplish my dreams, goals, desires, passions. And ultimately, I want you to hear me clearly when I say this. There will be people in your business that tell you you should do something. But there's only one thing in business that should tell you to do anything. And it's your dreams or your goals. And if your goals or your aspirations around your real estate career say you should build a business or an organization around you, then that requires you to go. And can I reference pages? I'm happy to reference pages as I have them. I think there's some pages that are already referenced in the PowerPoint, but we are literally going through the organizational model. So hopefully that helps. And if not, I can certainly get with you one-on-one and we can go that. But ultimately, I want to make sure you hear me clearly. Your dreams, goals, desires tell you what you should or shouldn't do in the real estate industry. Think of it like a string pulling you along your journey. And if your goals and dreams pull you to building a team or pull you into this organizational model, then you should engage it. But if your dreams and your goals are being met, you don't have to go get messy with building a team. And not that every team is messy, but growth is messy sometimes. And your goals really determine that. I wanted to start with that. So the 4 fundamental models of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. In the book, there's really only 4 models. The economic model, lead generation, the budget model, and the organizational model. And then the 5th model, which we've added later, is the expansion model. And we'll cover that at another point in time. Breakthroughs. We talk all the time, and I start every session with this. Your natural ability in real estate is only going to take you so far. We all hit a ceiling of achievement based on our Superman, Superwoman abilities. We can only go so far without help. And when we hit that ceiling, then we have to go back and look into models and systems. And then we'll break through that ceiling and we'll add some creativity and we'll add improved models and we'll break through that ceiling, and we'll keep going and adding things to our business when what we've currently added hits us at a ceiling of achievement. People and organization is certainly a part of breaking through ceilings of achievement. And ultimately, once you kind of exceed the ceiling of achievement, your own natural ability takes you to. People is the only thing that'll take you higher. Outside of technology is an accelerator and models and systems. Those things always take us to a higher level, but people, ultimately it comes down to people and who we get into business with, which is really where this organizational model picks up. First and foremost, I want you, and this is out of the Shift book on page 41, those that are looking for references. It says, think assistance first and assistant second. What does that really mean? It means there's an enormous amount of for hire, ad hoc, per service, virtual options that you should always exhaust prior to taking on a fixed expense. So another way to think about this is assistance is variable, meaning I hire it when I need it, but it's not on my payroll, where assistant is a fixed expense that's on my payroll. And just holding growth accountable, holding money accountable, we should always go to variable expense first prior to fixed expense. And we're going to talk some examples of this, but at the end of the day, being a smart business person, we have to understand variable and fixed expense, hold money accountable. And the Shift book really highlights that with that saying that says, think assistance first and then assistant second. All right, so let's move on down. So Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, talking about the organizational model, really talks about these three key hires. The assistant first, a buyer specialist, and a listing specialist. And I guess the question is, why are these the three key hires? Because it's not necessarily the first three people you get into business with, but it's the three people that take your business wherever you want it to go. So ultimately, the assistant grows up into the operations of your business. The buyer's agent grows up into all the buyer side of your business, and the listing specialist grows up to take over the listing side of your business. So obviously, our business is run with operations, buy and sell side of our industry. And if we're really focused on operations and leverage and hiring the right people, those people, if we hire great, grow with us as our organization grows, and they're the key people that take us where we want to go. Here's another thing that I think is important to talk about. So as we kind of go into hiring, which is probably not a natural skill set anybody brings to the table. Hiring is a process. Hiring is a learned way of best practices around getting into business with talent. And first hire, we'll get into it in the levels of an MREA team, but the first hire is hiring an assistant. And there's pros and cons to leveraging variable expense in the beginning. When you're a new agent, you probably hire a transaction coordinator per file. So much that at some point in time, it becomes cost prohibitive. You need to have somebody on your staff. And then, so that speaks to the think assistants first, assistant second. Well, at some point in time, you are going to have an assistant, if your dreams pull you that way, on your payroll. And you're going to make a choice. You want a licensed assistant or an unlicensed assistant? And here's kind of a pro and con list to both of those. So the pro says assistants allows agents to focus on lead generation by having the business knowledge and experience and ability to do other tasks. things that a real estate license brings to the table are some business conversations, business knowledge that they can handle because they're licensed to have those conversations. And it brings an extra level of leverage having a licensed assistant that an unlicensed assistant doesn't bring to the table. The second thing is an assistant has already made a career decision to be in real estate. Hey, real estate's an industry, right? And we choose to be in this industry. And if you hire somebody that has made that choice, they're automatically coming to the table saying, hey, I want to be in this industry. I love real estate, or I have chosen to want to be a part of the real estate profession. And they've already made that choice. Third thing is an assistant understands the commission business because they got into real estate and they understood we're in a commission-based industry. And fourth, the assistant is already trained in the business. They've already passed a real estate exam around contracts. They already understand that there's a fiduciary and a functionary part of our industry. They already understand that there is a legal side of our industry. They already understand that contracts and at some level, they understand how to write a contract, right? So that there are some pros to having a licensed assistant. Obviously, there's some downsides to it too. An assistant that's licensed or not licensed might cost you more, meaning somebody coming from a corporate environment that's used to a W-2 level of income might cost more than somebody that already understands that real estate is a commission-based industry and that they're going to find their way to win through commission, not salary expense. So unlicensed assistant sometimes tends to cost more just because of their perspective they're bringing to the table around employment. An unlicensed assistant tends to bring their own clients and wants to work with them. And sometimes that gets messy. If they have a license, I'm sorry, this is the licensed assistant. If they have a license, they have an expectation that if their best friend buys a house, they deserve that. And how are you going to handle that, right? Because they have the license, and what's their perspective around mom and dad, best friend, somebody from their sphere of influence wanting to conduct a real estate transaction? And that gets a little messy at times, right? So on the con, I said an unlicensed assistant could cost more because it's coming from a corporate America perspective. And at the same time, a licensed assistant could cost more too, because they have an expectation around commission. And that speaks to both number one and number two. So really, you just got to kind of navigate both of these. But third, it's that expectation around commission income. And they see the commission dollars. If they're a licensed agent, they feel a sense of ownership attached to that commission because of the license that they went through the process to obtain. Let's talk about the cost of a bad hire. So when you get into business with people, we tend to send you through a leverage series process where you're engaging in career visioning and we're learning how to hire people. And a lot of times agents, not to mention ever a name, I don't want to say the word cheat, but minimize the process until they have a bad hire. And when they have a bad hire, ultimately they learn the cost of that and they go back through it. But what does a bad hire look like? Well, it takes you 3 to 4 months to interview and hire somebody sometimes. And that's a lot of time and energy and resources allocated to getting into business with people. Then it takes 3 to 4 months to train and discover that they're not working out. You know, a lot of people can fake things in an interview process, or yeah, I can do that. But it doesn't always translate into the job, and it usually shows up in the first 90 days. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But then you gotta do the prudent thing and put them on a probation for 90 days. So now you're almost 9 to 12 months into this process with the wrong person. And ultimately, that time you spent, the money you invested in that, and now you got to start all over. So the a little bit of extra energy on the front end prevents all this from happening most of the time. It's not foolproof, but if you've ever really experienced a bad hire, this is a painful slide, and you understand it at a high level, because time is money, and money certainly takes your time. And ultimately we get caught up in a downward spiral until we have to go back through the process of a good hire. Well, the opportunity of a great hire, 3 to 4 months to interview and hire that person, and then 3 to 4 months to train and evaluate. It looks the same, yet if they're performing, it frees you to focus on other things. So priorities, mastery, opportunities, free time. You know, in the beginning, you have 100% of the activities you need to work on, because you're it. You are the assistant in the beginning. And then when you hire that first assistant or a second assistant, in theory, they're picking up 80% activities that don't make you a lot of money, because those become their 20% activities, if you understand the 80-20 rule. But what that means is you don't get to just have the time off, although you could. You should replace that time with other 20% activities, and that's how the rocket ship takes off, if that makes sense. So when you have a great hire, it puts you into higher dollar per hour activities that rocket fuels this rocket of yours or real estate business that you're taking off. And 6 to 8 months of time and money, and you gain personal and professional growth. If you're higher and you don't grow, it doesn't make sense. We hire to grow and to go to higher heights. And we hold that money accountable along the way. And then you come out of it and you're excited and energized, and you're excited to be in business with people, and it's a great experience. But it all goes back to the prep work we put in the very beginning to learn how to get into business with the right people. And that's really the leverage series. And I'm going to talk about that more here in a little while, but just kind of a little nugget ahead of time, right? So I want to make sure we just kind of set this stage first, which is we're at some point in time, we're going to need to engage people. If our dreams tell us we want to grow our business to greater heights, and there are ways to engage people around assistance, CE at the end first, which is variable, until our money and our business tells us we need to bring people onto payroll and actually have that assistant. And then that assistant should become a rocket fuel to our business that takes us to new heights. How do we do it, right? And this is really a long-term learned process for a lot of us. And it's an ongoing process, right? And it's really understanding people. Well, we've got a thing called the Keller Personality Assessment, right? Which is the behavior assessment of really helping people discover a job fit. Here's how I explain it. If we were on a pendulum and we do a behavior assessment, we're looking for a person's natural behavior. And what does their natural behavior look like? It says, this is what high energy looks like, and this is what, high energy looks like and low stress. But what it doesn't say is what they can and can't do. So if you ever looked at my behavior profile, it would say I actually have a low structure, which means don't put a lot of details in front of them. Well, I actually do a lot of detailed work in my line of work, financials, accounting, that kind of thing. But my pendulum comes over here for a period of time where if we were in business together, you would actually see my energy levels start to drain, and you would probably observe my stress levels start to raise, right? But the point of it is I don't hang out over here for long periods of time. I'll pop back up here and I hang out in my natural zone the most of my my job, right? And ultimately, we don't want to put people in roles where their natural ability is out of alignment with that, because at the end of the day, they're going to go home at the end of the day with no energy left. They're going to have health effects of high stress. And the truth is, our intelligence allows us to alter our behavior. So I could go do the job of an accountant. I believe I'm smart enough to pull that off, but at what cost to my family or those around me that that job causes me not to have much left to give after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night, or I have a health cost because I'm stressed all the time. It's not that people can and can't do things based on behavior. We're just trying to help them discover their natural behaviors and then find the roles that keeps them in those natural behaviors the most of the time, if that makes sense. And Keller Williams has a thing called a job fit, which says, once you take this Keller personality assessment, and it says here, based on your natural behaviors, these jobs are great fits for you. And you get to decide what, how you want to play that conversation out in hiring. You know, when you take the leverage series, which is career visioning, 30, 60, 90, and success through others, they tell you 25% of the decision should be based on behavior. Well, that's still a big chunk. And my experience, the behavior tends to be an early indicator of a great hire and an early indicator of success. All that being said, it's only 25% of the decision. And there's lots of other things involved, like track record and all that stuff. But what I want to talk to you about is skills test. And here's why I want to bring this up. We tend to hire people based on resumes, and we tend to fire them based on behavior. So that really speaks to the Keller personality assessment and getting into business based on people's behavior on the front end, which really moves us closer to great hires. However, I've gotten into business with people based on what they put on their resume, only to learn it was a little bit embellished throughout that process. And in our industry, I don't think it's inappropriate to ask people to do a skills test. So what does a skills test look like? I could ask somebody to create a flyer to see what kind of desktop publishing skills they have. I could ask somebody to create an Excel spreadsheet. I could ask somebody to look at a P&L and tell me what they see. I could find a way to throw a skills test at potential hires to help me gauge what a great hire should know. And I really think we tend to cheat or skip this process, and it certainly should be a big part of us engaging and getting into business with talent. All right, so talent. Talent's a word we throw around like a lot of words in our business, but talent in the MREA on page 161 is defined as somebody that does their job very well, and you can count on them to do what you tell them to do. And that's how the MREA defines talent around their job. Well, the SHIP book came out, and it brought to the table this concept of capacity talent. Capacity talent will do their current task and functions well, plus have the desired ability and intelligence to take on more. They do what they are told to do and look for opportunities to do more. They will eventually be able to replace your doing and thinking responsibilities. They have capacity to do more than what you hired them to do. Another way to say it is they have the ability to get the job done in 6 hours a day instead of taking all 8, or they have the ability to do the job 4 days of the week. So the 5th day they can work on new projects. And it really just speaks to speed, but it also speaks to intelligence and their ability to kind of engage those things at a much, much higher level. So I'm going to stop for a minute and ask you guys, you can either put it in the chat or jump online. What are you hearing me say around getting into business with people? All right. Keith, what do you hear me say?
Well, I mean, it goes back to your slide about the, you know, the investment of time for a bad hire.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting into business with someone is an investment of time and money. You know, the salary you're paying, you know, whatever the compensation looks like, plus possibly more critical than that, the amount of time you're investing in that person. So you're, when you ask, you know, what do I mean by getting into business with somebody? It's, you know, it's a relationship. It's a business relationship.
There you go. All right. In the chat, Kurt said it's worth the effort to screen applicants well. Absolutely, Kurt. And whoever Sport 000 is said the right people with skills needed. And it's certainly, what's our process to find them, right? And that's such an important thing. Well, here's how most agents get into business with people. They hire somebody and they say, follow me around and do this. And then they meet on the fly. There's not like a lot of structure around the training process, right? Just says, follow me around, do this. Where training and consulting done the right way says, we're going to train for knowledge and skills. We're going to take action and then consult for accountability. And I always tell people, you know, there's this interview in the career visioning process called the thought process interview. And in that thought process interview, you're asking your candidates, hey, tell me about an instance where you were trained really well, and tell me about an instance when you were trained really poorly. Well, we ask that question in our screening interviews to try to learn how people think and what they get into and who they enjoy being in business with. Yet, I'm not sure we always deliver that. And the question is if you're going to spend the time and energy and money to go get into business with people, don't stop at the hiring process. Engage that time and your money in the training process to ensure success. It's just a reminder that that's part of the process. Not hiring's one part of the process, but engaging them and training them and consulting them the right way to success is just as important once you bring them on. Otherwise, you'll be the example the next time somebody asks them when they were trained really poorly. And we don't want that. There are 10 principles on page 166 in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent that talks about the principles for empowering people. And number one is tell people what their responsibilities are and get agreement. I wrote down, get clear on your expectations and responsibilities and put it in writing. I think it's important to have things in mutual agreement, and mutual agreement tends to happen in writing because there's the room for confusion is minimized if you have things in writing. Number two, give them authority equal to their assigned responsibilities. If you've ever taken fierce conversations, there is a part of that class or in the book, Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott, there's a thing called the decision tree. And when we engage people and we want to empower them, we also have to give them the authority to make decisions. And we need to set parameters around what decisions they need our input on and what decisions we're empowering them to make decisions around. And really that decision tree, which talks about leaf decisions, branch decisions, trunk decisions, and root decisions in Fierce Conversation, creates a communication with people around, hey, go make decisions like this. Tell me what you did later. Or, hey, you don't even have to tell me, just make that decision. Or, hey, a decision like that's going to really affect our business. Maybe we should discuss it before it's made. And it gives you that context. And Fierce Conversation is one of the best around that. Number 3 is set standards of excellence and guidelines. You know, I define standards as I'm not willing to accept less than, meaning we got problems if performance is below this. And how do we communicate that so that people want to know what winning looks like, right? Number 4 is provide initial and ongoing training that will enable them to meet the standards. Really, that goes back to the training, the skills training, the knowledge training, really working with people to move them into success around all the skills part of our jobs. Well, if I don't plug in my computer, we're going to all go away real quick. So now we're plugged in. All right. Hold them accountable, define consequences. Sounds negative, but it actually empowers them, right? Accountability just says, here's the line in the sand that on this side of the line is success and this side of the line is failure. Now we're clear, let's go in. And let's just hold our performance accountable. I'm not, Gary Keller always talks about, I love people, but my love for people is different than my performance expectations. And we're going to talk about performance expectations, and then I'm going to care about you in a different conversation. And it separates it, but it's really important to understand what success looks like. Provide them with weekly feedback on their performance. If you want to empower people, don't leave them guessing whether they did a good job or not. Tell them, right? Feedback's important. Recognize them for their achievements, praise in public and correct in private. You know, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not great at recognition. People that work with me sometimes know that I'm not really good at saying, hey, great job, pat on the back. I have to be purposeful about that. And if I really want to empower people, I have to find a way, because some people need that. And if you want to empower people, you certainly need to recognize them for their achievements. And then if there's ever an issue, best practice is always correct in private. Trust them, allow them to grow into self-leadership. It's a little bit of letting the teenager leave the nest, right? Okay, I trust you to go take the car tonight. In real estate, we get into business with people, and we're all a little inner control freaks at times. But how do we empower people to trust them to do things? It's the same thing as the nervous parent letting their kid take the car out, right? Some point in time, you just got to let it, trust happen. And then give them permission to fail. So big. Asking them, what did they learn? Not reprimanding them for failure, but asking them what they learned. Failure is a part of learning. Failure is a part of growth. And getting into business with people, if you don't provide an opportunity for them to fail, you actually disempower them because they're scared all the time of disappointing you. Number 10 is treat them with dignity and respect. I always ask myself the question in conversation or relationship with people, how would I want my mother treated in this conversation? And when I ask myself that, it takes me to a place of care and candor. It takes me to a place of mutual respect, because sometimes a high D personality can get very sharp with people, and getting very sharp with people doesn't always lend to an empowering relationship. So how do you find dignity and respect in dealing with people? And it creates an empowered relationship. Accountability, you versus I. You know, sometimes we have to find where's our DNA in a problem. I should have trained you better. Instead of, I can't believe you did that. Hey, I feel like I didn't train you great on that. Can we stop for a minute and go back and talk about what success in that looks like? Or can we stop for a minute and talk about how I feel like I need to spend a little more time with you to ensure success with this in the future? Accountability doesn't always have to be about them. It can be about I, so that they get, they move closer to success. What was your goal? How did you do? How do you feel about that goal or the performance? Based on how you did, what is your goal and what do you need to do now? That's what a consultative dialogue looks like when you're having accountability conversations. And then, is there anything that might keep you from doing that? If you needed training or support to do this, what might that be? So really, you're sitting down having consultation conversations around goals and performance, but that consultation conversation puts you inside the conversation instead of you outside the conversation talking down to it. All right, so people is a big part of our world, and that's really what the organizational model is. But let's talk about like the specifics of it and where do we go. So you have to understand, in real estate, there's a lead generation aspect of our business, there's an operations aspect of our business, and there's a sales aspect of our business. And we talked about the three key hires in the beginning, being the assistant, that buyer's agent, and the listing specialist. Well, the listing specialist and the buyer specialist tend to land in the sales aspect of these operations. And then the operations aspect of, if you have a first great hire, they could grow up into running your whole organization because they start at the beginning. It's like a little bit of the analogy of the receptionist that grew up to be CEO. How does the assistant, when you hire great, grow up to run your whole operations of your business, right? And that's really what the organizational model casts the vision around in the beginning. So level one, we're going to talk about 7 levels of a real estate agent's business. And level one is me alone. I'm a individual agent. I'm a solo practitioner. I am the transaction coordinator, the marketing person, the listing agent, the buyer. I'm everything. And I start out in real estate this way. And it can be frustrating because it's probably not my natural ability to be great at all those things. However, I have to make a decision in the beginning of my real estate career. And it says, do I want to have a practice or do I want to have a business? And let me put a little context to that. If I want to have a practice, it would be like being a doctor. My name, everybody wants me, and I'm okay with the concept that I want to build around my value proposition that I alone bring to the table. And I have a practice, right? Or do I want to build a business in the medical analogy? Do I want a hospital? Do I want a group of doctor organizations that take care of people? Do I want to build out a clinic to where, yeah, I'm still a doctor, but the whole thing doesn't run on the dependencies of me, where a practice has a dependency to me. When I resign, the practice goes away. Or if I build a business, in theory, it runs with or without me. But I have to make that decision early on in my career because it really determines some decisions of where we go from here. Because if it's about me, I can never remove myself from certain aspects of the organizational model. But if it's a business, I continually remove myself as I grow. Level 2 says, I'm going to go hire an assistant. But I want to go back and I want to give you some perspectives. So Gene Rivers talks about level 1 being 0 to 36 units in the business. And I want to give you some context on that because most people hear 36 units and they think, yeah. But 36 units times $300,000 average sales price, let's say, that's almost $11 million in production. Do we wait until we're at 11 million in production before we hire somebody? Not everybody does. Is that right or wrong? I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong. Just giving you perspective because it depends on where you're wanting to go. But we believe you could handle 3 transactions a month or 36 transactions a year without ever hiring somebody. Remember, think assistants first, assistant second. I promise you, if you look around your office, most people are hiring an assistant before they hit 11 million in volume. The book doesn't say that's best practice, but real practice and best practice, you decide. Just interesting perspective, isn't it? Level 2, we say takes you from 36 units a year to 60 units a year. At 60 units a year, at $300,000 average sales price is 18 million in volume. So could you as an individual agent with an assistant go all the way to 18 million in volume? Absolutely. It's 5 units a month. You're making a lot of money because your only expense is that one salary and you're holding your money accountable. Is like, once again, is that what you see everybody doing? Maybe, maybe not. But that's what the book says to do. And that's what best practices says to do. So really at this level, you're asking yourself, man, do you need help? Do I have somebody that's in my business helping me? Do I need a dedicated person coming behind me, making the world go round? This is the hardest leap in real estate is letting go of the inner control freak we all have and bringing somebody on board because there's a risk. All of a sudden, I'm responsible for somebody else. I'm responsible for a salary. It's certainly a coaching moment. Now it gets real, right? It gets real. And when done right, this is the most empowering move too, because all of a sudden, all the stuff that you're probably not great at now gets put on somebody else's plate that's probably great at it. And that efficiency takes you really, really high. Level 3. This is really when you add that second assistant or that transaction coordinator, right? Notice there's not a buyer's agent here. Most agents try to start with hiring a buyer's agent because they think that brings them money, and it doesn't necessarily bring you money. It brings you commission splits, which ultimately, if you're trying to maximize your net income, this is best practice. Taking on a second assistant before you ever bring on a buyer's agent. And I can show you mathematically how it keeps more money in your pocket, but that's a different class, or certainly a consultation conversation I'm super happy to have with people. But you can probably see on the screen, 84 transactions, $300,000 average sales price, 25 million in closed volume before you ever brought on a buyer's agent. Could you handle 7 deals a month if you had 2 assistants supporting your world going around? That's best practices. Absolutely, you can. It's the way to build the business to maximize the money in your pocket. And
hey Brent,
yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about that. So
Yeah.
with those two assistants, one's a lead admin and I guess the other one's a transaction coordinator.
Right.
I guess with that lead admin, I need a little bit more understanding on what exactly would they do? Because I'm sort of at that point now, but I need to really make sure that I'm maximizing so that I can do that other portion.
Sure. So in this context, you're the sales function still. So they're not a part of the sales function, but they're a big part of the operation. So what is operations to a real estate business? Transaction coordination, marketing, paperwork, scheduling, all the operations that makes the world go round, so that you can stay in your best, highest dollar per hour activity, which is face-to-face with clients, buying and selling real estate, right? So if you took a piece of paper and wrote down all the top 100 things a real estate agent needs to do, probably 20 of those things are actually face-to-face with clients. 80 of those things are probably stuff that makes the business go around. And really that's a coaching conversation, and I'm happy to have it. But it fuels the fire, or takes it's the rocket fuel that allows you to go spend more of your time face-to-face with clients. So they're handling the back office of a real estate business. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
Perfect. So level 3 is 84 units or 25 million in this example before you hire a buyer's agent. Level 4, there's a level 4A and there's a level 4B. And level 4A really speaks to this assistance first concept, saying, instead of taking on a buyer's agent, what if I were to take on an assistant showing person, or somebody that I paid to show property for me, or somebody that was just a showing agent, but didn't necessarily write the contracts. I still did all the contract parts. And instead of moving to a place of 50-50 splits or whatever, I'm paying them 10% of the commission just to show homes, because it takes a lot of time to show homes. Or I move into a assistance place around my lead generation. I hire somebody to call my leads or convert my leads. The OSA or the ISA stands for outside sales agent or inside sales agent. And really the difference between the two is an outside sales agent is proactively making phone calls, cold calls for the most part, outside of my database, whether it's circle prospecting or for sale by owners or expired listings. And they're working towards setting appointments for me to go close. Or an inside sales agent really is somebody that is converting leads that came from the internet, or leads that came from social media, or any lead that called in that needs to be followed up on is handled by an inside sales agent. And then really, I think of the showing assistant or an ISA role or an OSA role as a training ground for somebody that could really grow big with you in the industry and in the sales function of your business. And instead of jumping off the cliff, you're putting your toe in the water around getting some help around the sales functions of your business, so that when you get to level 4B, you jump off the cliff. And level 4B says, I put a date on the calendar where I no longer showed homes. I'm only in the listing side of my business now. And when I put that date on the calendar, I removed myself from the buyer side of the business. And where do agents make mistakes? They don't actually remove themselves 100%. They cherry pick the leads, or they keep the high dollar per hour leads and give the junk leads to everybody else or whatever. And you make your choices what's right for your business. But at this point in time, if I were coaching anyone, I would say at some point in time, you're going to have to put a date on the calendar that says you're never going to put a buyer in your car again. And that's really what level 4 is all about, is removing yourself from the sales functions of the buyer side of your business and leveraging a lead buyer's agent who then in turn could take on their own showing assistants. But I also want you to notice that there's a commitment to lead generation here at level 4 that you didn't see at level 3. Not that you weren't committed, but you're committing resources and people at level 4 to lead generation. And there's a lead manager and somebody helping you collect all these leads and convert all these leads so you stay face to face with the consumer. Because I don't know about you guys, but at some point in time, there's a list of people I need to call, and finding the time to call them becomes a challenge because I'm face to face with people, which is where I need to be. Where if I take a commitment to leads, that's really what happens at level 4, in addition to I no longer put buyers in my car.
Yeah,
Level 5, yes.
I have a quick question about that last thing. So, I have my database. I call them. I use a D2. Handing that off to someone, it's like they know me, and I guess that's the whole practice versus like how do you do that?
Yeah. So if the team leader called you to check on you, how do you feel in your office environment?
My actual team leader, I'm like, wow, you took the time to speak to me, not that, but yes.
Are you put off if the receptionist calls to check on you?
No, I'm not.
It feels good still, right? Maybe not to the same degree, but it still feels good.
Yeah.
That's the same concept, right? If they're calling on behalf of your organization or your business, it feels good. If you're running a practice, remember, this is all the limiting beliefs we have as we're growing through these things, because you're no different than all of us. We think they need us, right? And what they need is our value proposition and our commitment to service, not us specifically. But you're right, it's challenging, and we work through these conversations in our head as we kind of grow up in the business in a sense, right? And scripts and dialogues helps. Hey, I'm calling on behalf of Caldwell Real Estate. I'm the operations manager, and we just wanted to call and wish you a happy day and make sure you're doing well and know about our Thanksgiving pie giveaway. Oh, thanks so much for the call. Yeah, we're doing great. Thank you. Anything I can pass along that we could do a better job of bringing value to you? No? Okay, moving on. And that felt really good, right?
It does. It does. One last question about that, though. Should I make my database aware beforehand they receive, a call from that person, or just it's like, hey, we've grown or something when they have that conversation?
I mean, I'm probably going to announce I've grown on social media, but hey, I work with Brett Caldwell, and he asked me to give you a call to check on you. How are things, right? It's all about the script and letting them know who they're calling on the behalf of. But that follow-up, it's not a negative, it's a feel good, right? And I hope I'm answering your question.
No, you really are. I'm like I said, I'm ready to take it up a notch. Just nervous about it.
Coaching, sir. We'll sit down and coach around it and get you there. All right. Level 5 is when you start to remove yourself from the listing side of your business. So at 5A is assistants first, assistant second, lead manager. You're really separating out the OSA and the ISA roles. There's a person in charge of the lead generation. It doesn't look a whole lot different than the level 4, except you've split out the inside part and the outside part. But when you get to level 5B, you'll notice over to the right side, they added that listing agent role. And I see a lot of agents adding listing agents, and they'll start with somebody that doesn't go on database listings. They go on referral listings or listing leads that were created by OSAs or ISAs. But at some point in time, level 4 talks about pulling you out of the buy side of the business. Level 5 talks about pulling you out of the seller side of the business, and really starting to build out around listings. And remember, you never lose your connection or commitment to lead generation. You always have to have your toe in that water. You always have to have your commitment or yourself emotionally close to the lead generation aspects of your business. Because at the end of the day, if that part of the business starts to lag, everything else falls off. So make sure you stay on commitment on that. Level 6 is when you really start to build the business, right? Not that it wasn't a business before, but now all of a sudden you have a real estate business in a box, and you start asking yourself, where can I go with this? How can I scale this? And when you start asking yourself those questions, inevitably, does an expansion conversation start to show up? And what happens is your agents that are highly successful start pushing on the system that says, hey, I'm real successful. How am I getting opportunity in this conversation? How am I growing? What's next for me? And expansion takes the 4 walls around your business away and says, we can go wherever you want to go. And one of the best examples of this is a old commercial broker named Trammell Crow. He built his entire commercial real estate firm based on expansion, where he let people go start divisions of his company in different areas that didn't take away from the nucleus that he had already built. And you'll see director of sales is a big role at level 6, because ultimately that director of sales role is the driver. It's the person that's going to drive all that success. And that director of sales is really it's the big leverage point around taking sales to a scaled level, and building systems around how we're holding our people accountable, how we're training them, what all that looks like. And that director of sales role really makes that robust. So again, 6A, and you'll see the difference between 6A and 6B is going bigger around expansion, and really taking that into, if you built your real estate business in a box in your city, how do we take that box to other cities? And where that director of expansion goes big. And then level 7, which is the famous level 7, says, do you want to be the CEO or do you want to be the chairman of the board? Meaning, do you want to be in the business, in the center point, making the business happen? Or do you want to step out and you own the business and you have vision and chairman of the board type relationship, but the CEO, you hire a CEO to actually run the business. And there's a few examples of this around the country. I think the McKissick Group's one of the best examples of this. But ultimately, you make the decision if you're going to be the CEO or the chairman of the board. And that's what level 7 is all about. So the next thing that I want to make sure we covered is 2 more slides. One is, how do you pay people, right? And paying people is complicated, and it certainly is, it's confusing as we're all trying to learn how to compensate people we get into business with. Salary makes sense, but I want you to, what I would tell you about salary is it's a fixed expense. Commissions are variable expense. Easy to see the difference there. There's pressure around commissions, of course, where salary says you got to have reserves. You got to hold margin accountable in your business, right? Pay expenses, not, are you going to pay to maintain their real estate license? Are you going to pay for their board dues or their continuing education if they're a licensed assistant? When somebody wants you to pay for their assistants, they're thinking, okay, that's a good perk, or that's probably an employee mindset. I want to be taken care of. Somebody take care of me. I'm dependent upon you if you pay my expenses for me. Bonuses. I've got an incentive mindset. I want to work hard to get a bonus, right? My bonus is attached to us all succeeding. Profit sharing. You know, Keller's a huge profit sharing company, and Gary knew if he allowed the agents that wanted to help the company grow to benefit from being a stakeholder in the company and sharing in the profits, it would cause the company to grow. And that's what he rewards. If people on your team cause your company to grow, do they have an opportunity to share in the wealth of that, right? And then retirement plan. Okay, it's the moral and long-term conversation around helping people that commit a big portion of their life journey with you. How do you help them prepare for a later chapter in life? Insurance benefits. Again, it's that employee mindset a little bit, but it's also a moral thing, and it's also a short-term thing. Hey, I'll take care of you in a time of need because I'll bring those benefits to the table if that's something I want to engage into. Vacation time and sick leave. It's a perk, it's a benefit, it's a employee mindset, right? And then equity options, that really speaks to the partnership of being in business with people from a partnership level long-term. You see the legal industry doing this a lot. You see the financial industry, the Deloittes of the world, the Arthur Andersons, they earn partner level within the company. So those are really the 9 major ways you can compensate people. And then ultimately, this is a bigger conversation that I want to make sure we have before we close up, because teams need to understand their value. And there's really 5 pillars around value that a team brings to the table for agents to get in business with them. And you have to understand the evolution of value. When you're a brand new agent, you're trying to get your head wrapped around, am I worth 3% commission? I remember when I was a brand new agent, I bought a client blinds. I paid for things because I felt like I needed to because the transaction was a little rough. I gave up some money at the closing table to make a deal work, right? So I wasn't highly confident that my value of 3% was worth it. Well, we grow up and we go, I work my tail off for that 3%. They can figure it out. And I get confident in myself being worth 3%. The next evolution of value is 6%. And you'll see inexperienced agents discounting their commissions a lot. And they do that because they think they have to get the business, because they're not confident in the value they bring to the table. And eventually your experienced agents will show up and go, it's 6%. If you want to hire me, I'm worth it. I'm 6% or greater, right? And I'm not saying you have to charge that if this ever gets fixed pricing or whatever, but I'm just giving you an analogy around value and how people evolve their value proposition in their mind, right? Well, when you start to engage with agents in business, really the number is 50%. And the first go around of bringing somebody on is usually around a 50-50 split. But agents really struggle asking a buyer's agent to pay them 50% of the commission until they get comfortable around the value they bring to the table. It's the same analogy. And if you understand these 5 pillars, the lowest level of value a team brings to the table is around the cult of personality. I'm a cool guy, come hang out with me, and that's my value proposition. And you'll see teams that are centered around that. A lot of times if it's somebody that has a political career, like I'm a mayor or a city council person, they might have a team just because of who they are in another facet of their life. Well, the next level of value is really around training. Training being, I'm going to teach you what to do. Hey, join my team. I'll teach you everything I know. And in the beginning, that value proposition works because everybody's trying to learn how to grow. Some point in time, that value proposition goes away because I learned what I needed to know. And the value proposition is a little weak after that moment in time, right? Well, then the third level, which is where I think most teams need to make sure they're solid, is around support. If you come work with me, all the marketing's handled, all the transaction coordination's handled, all the paperwork's handled, scheduling's handled, my support mechanism, my operations is solid. And it's a lot of value I bring to the table for you around those things. And then ultimately where 50-50 splits land is around that leads mechanism of value. I've been in business a long time. My phone rings. People want to do business. The brand we built generates leads. We pay for leads. We've got marketing that goes out at a consistent level, and that marketing brings leads to the table. So if we're going to work the leads that I provide, we're going to be on a 50-50 relationship. Well, the pinnacle of this is appointments, right? And appointments means I already generated the lead. I already qualified the lead. I'm setting you up on somebody that's ready to go. They're already ready to buy a house. They're already said they're ready to list their house. Just go on the appointment. Well, actually, when I get my business or my value proposition to that level, where I have an inside sales agent or an outside sales agent and a lead manager, really, they're probably getting compensated a portion of the commission. So the agent that's handling that transaction, they're probably getting less than 50% of the commission. And my value proposition grows that way. But it's really important that you understand your value proposition as you're building your organization out. And this is one of the best analogies I can give you around understanding the pillars of your value proposition. And then ultimately, how on earth do we put it all together, right? So no horse gets anywhere until he's harnessed. No steam or gas ever drives anything until it's confined. No Niagara is ever turned into light and power until it's tunneled. And no life ever grows great until it's focused, dedicated, and disciplined. This is a quote by Harry Emerson Fosdick. All this information, you can go back and watch this. It'll be saved on YouTube. I'm happy to have any consultation. I'd be driving you to your team leader. But all day long, this is your energy, and just let us show you how to take that energy, put it into best practices, or convert it into rocket fuel so your business goes wherever your dreams tell you it needs to go. And we're here to help. So thank you for spending time. I know I'm 10 minutes over. And yes, the recordings are saved on YouTube. If you go to YouTube at KW Heart of Atlanta Group, you can find the playlist, and everything is saved on there or somewhere in the interweb of Facebook groups, but I think you're probably better on YouTube. So thank you for your time today. That's the organizational model of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent.